Hi, I'm Aaron Wilson, and today I'm going to be going over some interesting hands I have saved on my poker tracker. In all hands, I'll be trying to put my opponents on a range and act accordingly. I'll also be using a HUD to get a better understanding of my opponent's tendencies, and I'll be using that information into all my decisions. So in my first hand, I'm playing Panama Respect, who's a well-known 60 and 100 Shreg. I know this player to be really aggressive, who contests every pot. Just by looking at the stats, we can see he's opening 100% and rarely folds to 3-bets. Out of position, he rarely flats, he either folds or 3-bets. We don't have the biggest sample on him, but I think it's better to use information you do have rather than to play readless. I've also seen this guy battling a lot of regs, and I do know that he tends to play a quite aggressive style. So in this hand we open King Queen off and get 3-bet. For 49 big blinds, we're never folding King Queen off to a 3-bet, and especially not to this guy. If we open up Poker Stove, we can see just how wide of a range he's 3-betting. So you can see that we will dominate a lot of his King X and Queen X hands. So just by flatting, we keep those hands in, and he will end up value betting himself when he flops top pair, and he will probably end up stacking off. So we call, and the flop comes 3 King 7 with a flush draw. He does a standard continuation bet. Our villain has a high c-betting frequency, so I do expect him to c-bet almost all of his range here. We flop top pair with a good kicker. We now have two options, to flat or raise. I think this is where people make a mistake. If we think about his wide 3-betting range, which we saw on Poker Stove, we are just crushing most of that range. The fact that he 3-bets too wide, and I do know from experience he can 3-barrel a stack off, I think raising here is a mistake, and flatting will show better expectation. If we raise here, we will only be folding out hands we are way ahead of with little equity versus us. If we think about the hands he is stacking off with, if we raise, he will get it in with hands that are ahead of us, like aces, kings and ace king. He will also get it in with his flush draws. So it's not like raising to protect our top pair will fold out his flush draws, as he is just going to 3-bet shove those. If we flat and he hits his flush on the turn, it's just the same outcome as us raise calling the flop when he shoves all in with his flush draw. But by flatting, we keep his range wide and get more value from his bluffs on the turn that may continue. So we flat, and the turn comes a deuce, which is a blank, and he continues to barrel. If we think about his range now, it's more polarized than his flop c-bet, and helps us to narrow his range. So I expect him to barrel his air and hands that beat us, and everything in between to check back for pot control. So the hands we mentioned that have us beat here, I expect to be aces, kings and ace king. I think 9s to queens will check back for pot control, and I think it's safe to eliminate 3s, 7s and 2s from his range. The reason being, most regs know that small pocket pairs don't play well in 3-bet pots unless you flop a set. So I expect him just to flat those hands for set value, because he doesn't want to 3-bet those hands and get shoved on that deep. So that small range of aces, kings and ace king is around 2% of his card distribution on Poker Stove, which will be around 6% of his 3-betting range. We are still way ahead of most of his 3-betting range here. On the turn, he is going to check back a lot of his weaker pairs and bluff catchers, and his ace x type hands with no pair has 3 outs versus us, which is around 6%. So by thinking about his possible hands, you can see our hand isn't as vulnerable as most players think it is when they raise to protect their top pair here. If you shove this turn, you're going to fold out all of his bluffs. If we pay attention to the stack sizes, it's set up nicely for him to shove the river. When I flat this turn, I expect him to think my range is mostly bluff catchers like ace 7, medium pocket pairs, but never as strong as king queen. Because that's what my range looks like to him, I expect him to think he can shove me off those hands on the river. So I do elect to flat here, and the river comes a 9, and he shoves. We have already went through his range on the turn. Since his weaker pairs than king x check back turn to pot control, and any of his flush draws have missed, we have either been way ahead or way behind the whole way. We have also made our perceived range to him look weaker than kings, so to me this river is a snap call. If he does have that small range of hands that do have us beat, we were always getting stacked, but we played our hand in a way to look weak and keep his bluffs in. So we do call here, and he shows 9-8 off. So you can see that if we did raise at any stage of the hand, he was for folding, but by check calling we kept his range wide and got him to barrel off his stack. These type of players can be tough to play against at first, but most of them do have a leak in the fact they don't know how to get out of a bluff when they are being trapped. So this is why it's important to let these type of players barrel or stack off in these situations. I'm not sure exactly why he shoved the river, as he was beating my miss flush draws, and better hands than 9x probably aren't folding. I guess it is possible he may have put me on e7 and shoved for value, which would have been a pretty sick shove, but I think I would fold that hand on the turn as I know he's going to shove river, and it puts me in a tough spot.